Empower Haiti stop the colonisation. Empower Haiti stop the colonisation.
I'm sure by now we're all aware that the president of Haiti has been assassinated. My focus is not really on the assassination as much as it is on Haiti itself. And the fact of the matter is, right now, Haiti is in turmoil, and the Cubans, certain Cubans in Cuba, are on uprise. Ironically enough, we had the mayor of Miami come out and say he welcomes the Cubans with open arms. And the governor of Florida come out and say, we stand with the Cubans. But they mean certain Cubans. I don't think they really mean the Afro-Cubans. Back in the 1700s, when Haiti was fighting, I believe it was 1791 exactly, to free themselves from the French and the European colonizers, some of them fled to Cuba, and the Spaniards did not want them there. The reason I point that out, it's still the same. It's still the same. Not only did they not want the Haitians in Cuba, once the uprising began in Haiti during the Haitian Revolution, they also didn't want them in Louisiana, because many Haitians migrated to Louisiana, and that's why Louisiana has the culture that it has today. That's part of the reason. That's a big influence came from Haiti. And that's why the African American Haitians and the African American Louisianians can mirror one another and certain cultural practices. But I digress. I'm just looking at the similarities in terms of how they're treating the Haitians in this country and how they're talking about Cuba. And they're not pointing out that Cuba is poor, but they're pointing out that Cuba's regime is not in good shape due to communism, when in fact Cuba has had embargoes on it for years and years and years and years. But they are really, really hyper-focused on the fact that Haiti is poor. The media is constantly mentioning about the assassination and adding into it that Haiti's poor. Haiti's not poor at all. Haiti is rich in resources, be it gold, be it oil, or even uranium. So they're not poor. The issue is the colonizers, that would include the United States of America and other European nations, as they did back in 1791, are still practicing the same oppressive state and behavior they did then. They're doing it now today. That's the issue. And that's what's impoverishing the people of Haiti. They're constantly trying to put in a puppet government in Haiti because they're not really interested, nor have they not ever been interested in having a black nation, especially in the Western Hemisphere where the United States resides. Haiti is right in the backyard of the United States. They really don't want black nations around the world to have any success. But Haiti, being that it's in the backyard of the United States, it's constantly being bombarded with the United States-led interference. And we all just recently got to see what that looks like. It's not that pretty. But I digress. The similarities and the comparisons about how Florida is treating the Haitians and turning and deporting Haitians as they've been doing. But as soon as the certain Cubans, those that are considered white or those that consider themselves white is a better way to put it. As soon as those particular Cubans want to rise up against the Cuban government, then all of a sudden the state of Florida and the city of Miami is welcoming them with open arms. But it was just last year during the Black Lives Matter protests, or whatever you want to refer to it as, that they decided to enact certain laws so that people could not protest in the streets freely. But here we have the Cubans protesting right now today, and there seems to be no issue with whether or not they're blocking out the streets or not. Make this make some sort of sense, because I'm a little confused. In 1919, the United States occupied Haiti for 20 years with military forces. Today, and that's about 102 years ago, right now, the United States is saying that they need to go over to Haiti, since there's so much chaos, and protect their fourth largest embassy of the world. Get that. A poor country happens to have the richest country's largest embassy in its country, yet it's poor. At least that's what the media keeps pointing out. We need to know that it's poor. It's poor. It's not poor. It's rich. And it's never been allowed to exist freely on its own. It has to stop. It's as simple as that. Everybody can see it. There's no more hiding from it. It just has to stop. Haiti has to take the lead in making their own country safe, productive, and prosperous, as it was intended by the Haitians in 1804 once they freed themselves, which, by the way, sparked an entire uprising of all black people enslaved around the world. Haiti's direct link to America, and Black America in particular, has a long history. And it goes back to those Haitians migrating to places like Louisiana. Some even went over to Cuba, where at the time, during slavery, the Spaniards, which are European Spaniards, that is, ruled. And once they saw those Haitians uprising in Haiti, they didn't want them over in Cuba. Very similar to what we see now today with Miami and those particular kind of Cubans. So I just wanted to point out the disparities between looking at the two countries, how America is talking about giving free internet access to the Cubans and giving Marines to guard the embassy in Haiti. The same approach as if it is 300 years ago or something. It's the same thing. It might be more modern because we're in a different time, but the same ideology, the same descent, the same approach towards people that are of African descent, and the way that they're treated as if they can't make their own decisions. Haiti deserves the right, and may even have to fight for the right, to free themselves once again, because clearly the United States has been in control of Haiti for a very long time, since Haiti is in the backyard of the U.S. If the U.S. would simply leave Haiti alone and let it be to its gold and its oil reserve and its uranium reserve, Haiti would be perfectly fine. I don't understand how people can get on television and talk about a country and say that the country's poor when those same people are the ones making it poor. I mean, no one buys this any longer. It gets old and useless. Free Haiti.